My name is Kat Banakis, and I'm the Manager for Client Engagement and Support at Grenzenbach Gleer and Associates Analytics.
And I'm Catherine Julitz, the Technical Communications Specialist at GG&A.
Today we'll be going over some of the advanced technical features of DonorScape, including loading new prospects into the system, updating information on existing prospects, and adding, editing, assigning, and deleting users. I'll pause at key points during the webinar to answer your questions. To submit a question, hover over the green bar at the top of your screen until you see a question mark or a conversation bubble.
Direct your questions to host, which is me. Any questions that we aren't able to get to during the session will be answered as part of the follow-up transcript that we'll email out to registrants. Following the session, we'll send out a link of today's recording session and a transcript of answers to any questions we didn't get to during the session. If at any point during the webinar you are experiencing any technical difficulties, please send me an email at cjulitz@grenzglier.com or call our meeting provider, WebEx, directly at 866-229-3239. Again, you can email me at cjulitz@grenzglier.com.
Thanks, Catherine. Finally, I need to say that all names presented during any GG&A webinar, including today, are from public records and bear no relationship to any GG&A client institutions. The names we use have been appended with fictional giving and relationship data and are included for demonstration purposes only. So we have 3 goals for today's session. We're going to begin by looking at how to load new prospects into the system. Then we'll move on to how to update information on existing prospects in the system. And we'll end by looking at how to add, edit, assign, and delete users within your DonorScape account. To begin with how to add new prospects into the system, we're going to look at 3 ways that you can do this. You can load names individually, you can load up to 5,000 names at a time, or you can submit more than 5,000 names through the DonorScape team. For all purposes, though, we begin by looking at the home screen, always a safe bet. And here we have the updates, but what we want to look at here is your contract summary on the right-hand side, because this is going to tell us how many searches, that is new prospects that can be loaded into the system, we have remaining in the contract. So for this contract, we have well over the number that we'll need. We have just under 10 million here. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the first technique in loading new names into the system, and that's the individual name search. You will need to have privileges to load new names into the system, and you'll know that you have those privileges because you'll have a search tab. So when we click on search here, it defaults to new prospect search. And this is the technique for loading individual names into the system. Now, there are some advantages and disadvantages to using this technique for loading names into the system. The advantage, as we'll see in a moment, is that you can test to see if you have any matches for that prospect before you submit them and use up one of your searches. The disadvantage is that there's much less information you can put in about a prospect by loading them one by one than you can by filling out the template that we'll do later. The template allows you to specify what ID number you want to use so that It corresponds to the IDs that you have in your donor management system or some other number convention. When we load it this way, it's just going to attribute a random ID to the system, so it won't necessarily match with what you're using day to day. Also here, we can't put on any information about the prospect's giving history. But it's a great way to be able to look up one name at a time. So we just fill out their name and anything else that's required by an asterisk. So here I'm going to fill out Toby Hall, who's at 10 Trinidad Drive in Fairbanks, Alaska. Once we filled out the minimum information there, we could fill out business address or seasonal or spouse if we had it. We hit search. And now it's searching through all of the databases within the system to see if there are any matches. Here we have one LexisNexis property match, and it has a match quality rating of E. If there were Dun & Bradstreet, Reuters Market Guide, any other database matches, they would follow right here. And this allows you to only submit a record that has data available on it. So I'm going to go ahead and submit the record. And we see here that Toby's record has gone into the system. We've got this one Lexus real estate match, his gift capacity rating of 6. And we can also see that it's given him this random ID, which you can also see up here in the left-hand side. So again, for loading one name at a time, we're going to go through search, new prospect search, and then hit submit record. If we want to load up to 5,000 names at a time, we would go to the Express Upload tab, also under search. And I want to direct your attention first to the account ID over here. For this account, it's 3362. Your account will be a different number. And then over here on the left, we have an instruction sheet and a template that we'll fill out to upload somewhere between 1 and 5,000 names. The instruction sheet have written out in detail what I'm going to go over in a PDF. And then the template is going to download in Excel format. And there are some columns in the template that are required, some that are recommended, and others that are optional. The required columns are in yellow. And you'll see as we go across, yellow are the required columns, green are recommended, and white are optional. If you hover over the headers on the columns, there are helpful notes from myself that go over what the technical specifications are for what can be in each column. They're not kidding. When it says the first name, the file name must begin with the account ID, enter the account ID, or when we get over to the address information, if you don't know the home street address, that's fine, but it is what is considered required. So if you don't have it, you have to put in not provided, and so on and so forth. So for each column header, there are indicators as to what can go in each column. Here we have the home zip code column, and for all of the zip code columns, we can't have any hyphens, so you couldn't put 75023-1264, just 75023. But what we'll do is we're going to fill out this template with all of the information you have on your prospects, and then we're going to upload it to the system. So here on my desktop, hiding, I have a template that has been filled out with information on prospects. I'm going to go ahead and open it up. So here we have the required columns here in yellow. We didn't fill out the recommended columns. I didn't have business address information on them or age. And we're just going to go ahead and do two things to this file. First is that we're going to save it beginning with the account ID number. That's this first required column. As you'll remember from here, it's 3362. So we're going to save it beginning with that account ID number. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to delete all of the empty columns that are not required. This is a good practice to do because on the off chance that you hit a period or a space bar or something that you didn't mean to in one of these empty columns, you don't want to accidentally overwrite or put in false information in your records. Also, anything that we don't, anytime you have a blank column, there's the possibility that you could accidentally hit the enter key or something like that and just create errors within the file that you don't mean to. Frequently, these are what are called carriage returns, and that just means that you've put an extra space or held down the enter paragraph key, and it's creating more space within the file than you need to. So we're going to delete everything that we don't have here. And there is a great deal of information that you could put in about your prospects into the system that we're just putting in the bare minimum today for the demonstration purposes. And you'll recall from the introductory training that all of those client fields that we looked at are text fields that you can query on. And we'll look at those also today in our update segment. So let's just go through and make sure that everything is formatted correctly. We can have 4 characters max. It's got to be our account ID. That's correct. Screening indicator must be Y. That's correct. Prospect ID required. They're all there. We are missing some home states here. If you don't know the home state, you can put in XX, but we do know the home state. Don't want any missing zeros. Let's check on total giving. Numerals only. So let's go ahead and put in zeros and not the word nothing. Otherwise, the whole file will be rejected if we put in impermissible characters. I also filled out here client field 20, and this is what's going to allow us to quickly isolate this batch of records from other records within the system. We're going to show you at the end how to query by date or by this client field 20, but it's helpful to use this client field as some sort of indicator of what the file is that you're uploading. So I'm going to save this beginning with my ID number, which is 3362, followed by an underscore. Again, all of this is detailed in the PDF print instructions. I'm going to say February 2012. And I'm going to save it as a comma-separated file instead of Excel. That, when it says you want to go ahead and save this, it's going to change the formatting. That's just telling us that when it saves it to CSV, all of the color coding and formatting is going to go away, which we know. So I choose the file that I've just created. And that is 3362 February 2012.csv. Open it, tell it to upload, and it's telling me that there are errors. It says errors, yes. So we click on this. It says a column name is invalid. Please check each field in header row for correct spelling and spacing. When we get this error, one of two things has happened. Either there really is an invalid column header, and we can check that against the template, or it means that there is a carriage return. And if we check against the template, the header spelling is, I'm pretty sure, fine in everything we have. So the way to get around this error is that we're just going to copy and paste into a new document the text that we had in the file we were trying to upload. So we're opening a new document entirely. I'm going to save it again. And you could also look at the file in TextPad and try to find every possible carriage return, but copying and pasting once you've looked through to make sure nothing's off is probably going to be your fastest way around it. February 2012B. Okay, so we're going to find it again. And the file will say in progress when it has been loaded without any errors. So again, the way to get around if it says a column name is invalid is to make sure you don't have any large spaces that seem off and copy and paste it into a new file. When you click on the yes here in the errors column, it's always going to tell you what's wrong with the file. Sometimes it'll say you don't have a state listed in row 36, or you don't have your screening indicators filled out. So whenever you click on yes, it'll indicate to you what's wrong with the file. Similar to when we were running custom reports in the introductory session, for this page to refresh and have the errors column read no to tell us that the file has completed successfully, we're going to need to flip to another part of the system and come back, or refresh it by hitting this tab again. So I'm going to hit it again, and then it says errors no, which means that all of the files we just loaded have successfully gone into the system and been processed. If you were going to need to upload more than 5,000 records at a time, you can either upload them yourself in quantities of less than 5,000, break up your file, or you could fill out the same template and submit it to us at DonorScape, and we would load it for you. But it would be the same procedure either way. So let's go back now and find the records that we just uploaded into the system. I'm going to do that through the custom query function, and we have two options here for doing that. One is that we can look at it by upload date, if this was the only file we were uploading today, or we can also do it by that client field 20 that we filled out. So first, to do it by upload date, I'm going to look at constituent information, and then scroll down to upload date equal to today's date, 02-16-2012. Give it a name and save and run. And here we've got the 10 records that we uploaded along with Toby Hall of Alaska, who is in there twice, both because we input him manually in the individual name search, and then he was uploaded as a separate record in the template we just filled out. If we look, though, in the template that we filled out, and we click under View Prospect Details, we were able to put in there this client field 20 as well as his giving history, whereas the Toby Hall, who we input individually, if we look at his prospect details, there's no giving history and no field 20. So since his individual name is a little bit less complete than the one from the template, I'm going to go ahead and delete this record as a duplicate and click Remove Record. So now we have the 10 records that were uploaded from that template. Let's look, though, at another way to query for them, which is by that client field 20, which we had filled out to be February of 2012. And for this one, I'm going to use the like function because I don't remember if it was exactly the word February or 2012 or just 12. So the like function puts a wildcard indicator on either side of the name. And so I'm going to say I want client field 20 like Feb. Feb CDF 20. Save and run, and it's coming up with all those same records. And there we go. Okay, any questions about uploading new records? No, we are going and blowing. So this was the hardest part of the training, which is why we went slowly, because we're going to replicate this in many ways in the next part of the training. And that is updating information on existing records. We update information on existing records in the system for a couple reasons. One is that new information about prospects, such as new employment information, new address information, can change their gift capacity rating and will match to different records in the system. We might also want to have better background information about their giving history, keep that more up to date. But we also might want to do it just to reflect internal changes to your institution, such as their assigned gift officer or their updated gala and affiliation information. So to do that, we're going to go to Administration, Batch Update. And then we have the option to pull down two new templates. The first one is prospect assignments, and we're going to get to that in the third part of today's training. For now, we're going to look at prospect updates. It's going to give us a very, very similar template, except in this template there are only two required columns, and those are account ID and prospect ID. So again, we're going to fill out 3362, their prospect ID within the system, and then any updated information that we have on the prospects. As in the Express Upload template, the specifications for what can be included in each column can be found if you hover over the top. So here we're going to update the information on 20 prospects. I have their account IDs and their prospect IDs filled out. And I want to update their assigned gift solicitor with C. Daniels. And I'm also updating client field 1, client assigned field 1. If we look within our account, if we hit in client assigned fields, it'll tell us what the names of those are. And here we have client field 1 is whether they are active or inactive prospects, yes, no, and client field 2 is whether they are gala attendees. So I'm filling out who is active and inactive. Let's go back, anything else? And no, just those columns. So again, we would delete anything that we're not updating just for safety's sake. And then we're going to save it. For the sake of speed, however, I'm going to skip that step. We're going to save it as a CSV document to our desktop, 3362 batch update. I'm going to indicate that this is February of 12. Go out of the system, and then we're going to find that file and upload it. And it is upset that the street addresses are null, so let's repair that. This is exactly how it goes when we're actually doing it, that it will have things that it tells you this cannot happen, so we honor those specs that it wants us to change. Delete all of these columns that we don't have in there because they're not required for this. And let's try this again. Save. Save. Yes. Yes. There we go. So the reason that we can upload it, that I could delete those columns and it hopefully won't cause an error, is that they're not required in the template to be complete, but it's warning us that it could overwrite it with blanks. I must have been choosing the wrong file. Let's try this again. I was trying to do the express upload, which is why we should have had an even uniquer name. Let's try this guy. Upload complete without errors. I am glad that we have good humor in this audience, that when I tried to do the wrong file continuously, we were even able to get through that. Thank you, friends. So we now can return to the prospects that we were just looking at there. And to isolate these prospects, I'm going to do a similar query of looking for people whose solicitor is like Daniels. So this is people who I just updated with that name. And if we look under here, I'm going to pull up that query. And it's pulling up the 20 people who have a solicitor like Daniels. And we could also do a similar query for those that had Y or N in client field 1. And let's see if there are any questions on updating prospects.
Kat, there is a question. The question was asked, when you update the records by batch, does that count against match rights?
It doesn't count as a search at all to update the information. It also will not count as a search against your total if you were, now that we've updated the information on these people, to hit update prospect. that would set off a rescreen through all of the databases and run them against all of the possible matches. Again, it wouldn't count as a search. The only time it's going to count as a search against your contract is if you input a new record into the system. And as we saw in the live theater that is the webinar, if you try to upload a new prospect through the update function, it won't let you do it. So even when I tried to foil the system here by using the wrong template, it still came out correct, and it didn't decrement against my total. Okay, so let's move on to the third part, which is adding, editing, assigning, and deleting users. And this is really the portion that is under administrator rights, and it is what separates administrative users from base users. So those of you who have the power of being your account administrator, this is where the joy and the power comes in. So if we look under the administration tab, this is where we can add new users to the system or change the rights of existing users. We're going to look at adding, editing, and deleting users, and then also assigning prospects to individual users. To add a new user to the system, we're going to go under Administration, Create, Edit, and Delete Users, and then we're going to hit the Add Radio button. We would fill out here with the start date as to when you want them to be able to start using the system. So if you have an employee who's coming on in a couple weeks, you can go ahead, fill out all of their information, and then just have the start date as to when they would be starting to use the system. We specify here what kind of privileges we want to give the user to the system. There are 3 levels of privileges: base users, administrative users, and read-only users. What separates the base user and the administrative user are that administrators can create new users. They can also run audits on the system, that sort of thing. And base users can modify records, upload new records, everything like that. Read-only users can only look at records. They cannot modify them. They cannot update new records to the system. As an administrator, you can also limit base users' access a bit further. You can indicate whether they're allowed to do express upload, which is uploading up to 5,000 records. You can say they can do express upload, but only if you approve it. That would be what the add queue required is. You can specify if they can do simple searches, so just uploading one name at a time, as we looked at today, whether they can delete records, and if they can delete records, you could click this off to say they can only delete the records if you approve it. For these 2 issues here where it's the adding queue required and delete queue required, those lists would come up here under Add, Delete Queue, and you as the administrator would see who's trying to add new prospects or delete prospects, what they're trying to do, and you would have to approve all of those actions. We can also specify what kind of records they can see within the system. As we went over in the we're going to get to that in a second with whether they can see all records, those assigned to them or those not assigned to them. And then whether they can see all exact, near, possible, and simple, exact, near, and possible only, exact and near, or exact only. You'll recall from the introductory session, this is what I was going to say, that we have these 4 match quality levels, exact being the most verified data, exact, near, possible, and simple being the range of the least verified data at that simple level, and you can limit what users can see. Frequently, clients will limit the match preferences, the match quality rating permitted for some users, whether you want some gift officers just to see the verified data and the data you've gone through, or if you want to allow people to see everything. You can indicate whether they can build queries that can be shared or not. They fill out their information, their contact information, and click Save to add them to the system. We can do the same provisions once we've created a user through the Edit function up here to change their access levels, to change the functions that they can do, everything like that. And you can have multiple administrators to an account also if you want multiple people to be able to add users. There's no limit on the number of users you can have within the system at any user rights. That is entirely up to you. We do recommend that each user have their own login name so that you can have multiple people logged in at the same time. When you want to delete a user from the system, under the Edit bubble here, you choose their name, and then at the bottom here, you just click Delete, and they no longer become a valid username within the system. So now we're going to look at how to assign prospects to usernames. I want to take a minute to clarify what we mean by assignment here. There are two kinds of assignment within DonorScape. One is just the text field update assignment that we did for Colin Daniels when we looked at those records that we updated. Let's go back and look at one of those records. Here we have the assigned solicitor is Daniels. If we click on View Prospect Details, assigned solicitor C. Daniels. This is just a text field, and this is, when we say assigned solicitor, we mean their gift solicitor, their gift officer. This is just a query field for you to be able to use to isolate your records within the system. But when we're talking about DonorScape username assignments, what we mean by that is that there are times in which you want to allow people to log into DonorScape, but only to look at specific records. We can limit what people can do to the records through the read-only function or through the function of base users where you specify what they can do, but we can further limit things to say that they can only look at certain records, whether that's that you have multiple sites and you want just the prospects related to that site to be available to their users, or you want certain gift officers to only see their prospects. This is the function where we're really going to limit who can look at which records within the system. And when we were adding the new users, that's this bar right here where it says prospect views, view all, view assigned, view unassigned. This is where we specify who can, whether you want them to be able to see only their assigned users, to also be able to see users who, only their assigned prospects, whether you want them to be able to see prospects who aren't assigned to anybody, or if you want to let this particular user see all prospects within the system. So when we're looking at user assignments, again, we have a couple options for how we're going to do this. We can build a query and pull up a query name. So when it says assign from, if I wanted to assign to one of the users just those prospects we had loaded today, we could do the February 16th, 2012 query we just built. And then we would select that query, select the username, and then those 20 names that we updated there, we would assign them to the user, or we can do it through two other means. One is that we can specify them by a name range, a location range, any of our client-defined fields, and then we can assign, unassign, or move the prospects. So here, for example, if I want to look at all of the records, I can assign them from here, select the username, and then I can assign all, and it would assign all 10,000. Let's do a slightly smaller range here. How about those that were assigned to the gift officer of Daniels? I want to set it to, we have to first unassign them here. Let's pick all those in the state of California here. This is being a little silly. All right, let's try this. All records, there we go. So I'm going to assign all of the records to KB Train. I'm going to hit Assign All. And it's now assigned all of those records that had been unassigned to KB Train WS. So here we see that they've moved from up here of Assign All down here to the bottom right. If I wanted to unassign them from that user, we could click them off individually and click Unassign. Or here we can say Unassign All, and it will unassign all of them from me as a user. So again, this is the function that we would use if we wanted to limit the number of records that could be seen when somebody logs into the system. If you never assign, unassign, there will be no limitation on who a person can see when they log into a system. And if you ever want to move a portfolio from one user to another, we would use the copy/move prospects function so that you could copy or move them from one user to another. Frequently, we would do that in a staff change situation, something like that. Okay, any questions on assigning users?
Kat, there is a question. The question was asked, with express upload of a list of names, how do you get the match list out in a report?
Oh, great question. So once we've pulled up you'll recall from the introductory session that to create a report, it's always a two-step process. First of creating a query, and then of creating a report for exporting. So in the case of the new records that we uploaded today, I'm going to do it on the client-defined field query we had. So here are the 10 records we were looking at. We're going to pull up the names. These are the records that we want from the query. We're going to go over to Custom Report Builder and tell it that we want it in a comma-delimited constituent list export. I'm going to go ahead and select all of the fields. We hit Generate Report. Asks us two questions of whether we really want what we're about to do. And then like we had in the Express Upload function, we have to hit this again for it to refresh or click to another window and come back. And here it says ready to download, and when we download it, it would come out in a text pad which we can then save to a CSV. Always good to review that because it looks insane. So if we do File, Save As, this is the field of records we just had, and I'm going to save by changing the last 3 letters from T as in Tom, from TXT to C as in cat, S as in Sam, V as in Victor. And if we go back to this one that we just created today, there we have the 10 names that we just created in the upload and all of their scores. And if you need any further review on how to do those different kinds of reports, please feel free to watch the intro session there for the detail on that. So again, let's just review quickly because we went through a good deal of technical aspects today of DonorScape, what we've looked at so far. So we looked first at how to add new names to the system. We begin by looking at our summary of how many searches we have remaining to make sure you have enough. And then under the search function, we can upload them either by new prospect search or the express upload function. When we want to update information on a prospect, we do it through the batch update function. And here we can look at prospect updates. And I failed to mention here that if you want to update the assignments on a prospect, you can do it through the functions we looked at of doing it by the query or doing it by the assign, unassigned, or you can fill out this template here, which is a third template, but very similar to the other 2 we looked at today, except it's just going to have 3 columns, which is the account ID, the username of the DonorScape user you want to assign the prospects to, and then the prospect IDs that you want to match within the system. So here we would say the account ID is 3362, the username is KBTrainWS, and then what the prospect IDs are that we want to match within the system. So those are 3 ways that we can assign the prospects, right? So we can do based on a query, based on that template we just looked at 2 seconds ago here, based on geography, other factors, and then assign them to different users within the system. We also looked at how to create, edit, and delete users. We would create a new user by hitting this Add button, filling out their information. We can always edit the information we have on existing prospects within the system. And in creating and editing, we can say what actions they can take in terms of uploading or modifying records, and also what records they can see through the assignment function, and what level of verified data they can see. If ever you are confused on any of these functions, the support website allows you to query for any keywords of functions that you might be confused on, and also has written instructions for everything within that if you are a more visual learner. And we are always here in flesh and blood to answer your questions as well. And please feel free to contact us through the hotline number 866-378-8540 or email us at support@donorscape.com. If you have any questions that come to you in a late-breaking fashion, please do email them to us today, and we'll include them in the transcript that goes out tomorrow. along with the recording of today's session, should you want to review any of the functions if you get stuck at any point. Thank you all so much for your time today. Following this session, you'll receive 2 surveys, one from our WebEx meeting provider about the technical aspects to the webinar, and the other from us here at GG&A. We deeply want to make these webinars useful to you and helpful, so please let us know how we can improve. Obviously, trying to upload the right file does help in the technical training here. But any other ideas you would have for webinars of things that would be helpful to drill down or specialties to your institution, we want to make these as helpful as possible. Thank you so much for spending this last bit of time with us, and please keep in touch with us on the exciting things that you're doing in analytics for fundraising. Thanks so much and have a good day.